Peace and love, family. Welcome to another powerful discussion with your sister, Dr. Ma'at. Tonight we have family in the building. Brother Shakura is in the building. Peace and love to you, Brother Shakura. How are you, King?
I'm good, my sister. Once again, thank you for the invite and greeting you in the word sounds Tendai Mwadi, which is spoken in the Shona language of Zimbabwe. And it simply means giving thanks unto the Creator. Kuzai Mwazimu Mokolo, giving praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodie, African liberation and African power for all African people. Ashe, Ashe,
Ashe,
Ashe.
Ashe, a BB Fahodie, a BB Toomey. So that's
Yes,
family African liberation and black power. Ashe.
yes, sir. Yes,
And so,
sir.
family, take a moment out to thumb up this video. Also, share the video, family. Let's get the views up. Sharing is caring. So let's make sure that we share it. I'm actually getting ready to share this discussion on all of my social media platforms. So, family, make sure that you join me. Let's share it on our social media platforms. So, hit up Twitter, tweet out the link, family. Go to your Instagram. Well, I know on Instagram you can't really tweet a link, right? But tweet out the link on Twitter. All right. Let them know we're live on Instagram and give them my YouTube channel. So make sure you share it. I know a lot of the old folks, we're on Facebook. Isn't that funny? The new folk, the younger people say, you still using Facebook, Doc? And I
Mhm.
say, yeah, I'm on Facebook. So make sure, I know a lot of the people who are connected with me, they are on Facebook. So make sure that on Facebook you share this link, family. Let's get the views out. Tonight we're going to be talking about, are we the real Jews? According to Kanye and Nick Cannon. And you got Kyrie, Nick Cannon, Kanye, and there's a host of a lot of people who have said that, we are the real Jews. That's what they're saying. We're the real Jews. And then you got, with Kyrie Irving tweeting out the documentary From Hebrews to Negroes. Then you woke up the I want to say the sleeping giants. So now you got the brothers. And shout out to my Hebrew Israelite brothers. I don't knock people for what they believe, okay? Because you could believe anything. I could believe that I can fly if I jump out this window. You're entitled to your beliefs, but are your beliefs true? Now that's another story, right? Like that's another story. And so anyway, shout out to my brothers, but the Israelites, I think it's called Israel United in Christ. Those brothers had gathered at the Barclay um, Stadium out there to support Brother Kyrie. And even though I disagree with their doctrine, let me say this, family. I do agree, I do appreciate and applaud those brothers for showing their support for Brother Kyrie. Because you had black, I don't even want to call them brothers, but you had black dudes in the media who was literally, Brother Shakara, roasting Kyrie. You get what I'm saying? For tweeting, the documentary, From Hebrews to Negroes. And so then you had a bunch of those house Negroes out there who was, just demonizing Kyrie in the media. And so I do applaud those brothers from Israel United in Christ for going out there and showing their support, irregardless of what they believe. However, family, I want to bring it back, family. We are not the real Jews. We are not Jews. So that whole the real, we're not Jews. And so our brother Shakara, he put out a video on Instagram. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. It actually went viral. I think I saw it on Instagram. Then I saw it on TikTok. I said, I gotta reach out to our brother Shakara and just kind of, I want to know where he was going with this whole thing. And I know he was going with it. He said, we're Africans. Stop acting like we other things, but being African. That's what he was saying. But I wanted to invite him on tonight just to unpack that whole idea of, being African and why is it so hard for us to accept that we're African. So, Brother Shakra, tell me what was going through your mind when you created the video and you started with, our ancestors aren't Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But you just, if you could send me the video right now, please send it to me because I can play it for the crowd, the audience. If you can send it to me, brother.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do right now. Give me a sec while I'm talking. But the reality is, first of all, let me reiterate your commendation for the brothers from Israel united in Christ. Yeah, in terms of standing up for Kyrie Irving in particular, because I think that the attack against that particular brother has been completely unwarranted. Yeah, and whether I agree with the details of the substance of the documentary or not, I think the brother is being punished for a tweet. Yeah, and I don't think the attack against him ends there. There are many things that he has been attacked for, and some of them I don't agree with, some of them I agree with, but he just seems to have a bit of a pro-black consciousness going on. And within the world of the NBA, this is not something that you're supposed to bring to that energy. And so I appreciate the brothers for standing up, and whatever good work that they do in the community. Yes, I've seen brothers who are members of that particular group talk about what they were before they joined that particular formation, and many feel that they're better men, better fathers, better husbands, you know, and so on and so forth as a result. And so any work that people do on behalf of Black people, on behalf of African people, then I see something to applaud there. What was going through my mind was just the need to venerate and honor our ancestors. Yeah. I think that we have an issue in our global African community in which much of our history has been tainted by the legacy of the Ma'afa, the enslavement, the colonization, the invasion, and the conquest of Africa and African peoples around the world. And as a result, our historical continuity has been severely impacted and affected. Many of us, and present company included, although I've never thankfully held a European name in my life, but many of us come from families whereby the names of our direct lineage was lost. And so we have a sense of cultural discontinuity and historical discontinuity and a severing from the names of our ancestors. And to replace that, what we were given is the idea that this group of people who are central, or a particular family line that is central to the narrative in a book called the Bible and other books, you know, referred to as the Torah and the Quran, are the central lens through which we should view the creator and the divine, that this particular lineage is a part or an essential axis around a people who are considered to be chosen. And so therefore, within the context of a loss or a tainting or a severing or a damage that has been done to the historical and cultural continuity of African people, many of us seem to have replaced it, yeah, with the narrative of the Bible. So we don't know or the names of the ancestors of the cultures from which we come. And so my particular emphasis was on calling those names. Yes, I tend to look at these things from an African-centered perspective. And what I mean by that is many of us, we prioritize and centralize the narrative of the Bible and view the world from that lens. And even many of us who are challenging that narrative spend more time challenging that narrative than affirming our own African narrative. And so my emphasis was to bring the African names of our African ancestors and affirm our indigenous African narrative in terms of identifying who we are and affirming that identity.
Absolutely. And shout out to brother Uncle Ket, brother Bobby West is in the building. You know, I couldn't have this conversation about us being the real Jews without bringing on the God killer. So peace and love to you, brother Uncle Ket. What's going on with you, King?
Man, first of all, how you doing, brother?
I'm good, my brother. Good to see you and welcome and give thanks for being here.
Yeah, blessings. How you doing, Dr. Mayat? What's good, Pseudo Killer Official? You know how we do in this building, man. We want to, first of all, we want to give thanks to you for actually bringing scientific literacy to the broader African-American community. That's what I call real work. Not the foolery, not the acting like we something. No, real scientific literacy, which will allow the babies to make their own decisions, right? When it comes time for them to pick and choose, they still have that lens to look through. That lens is called science. So I appreciate you doing that. That's real. That's solid. And you know I'm in your corner. And I always appreciate you bringing me through to talk to the young brothers and sisters, right? Appreciate you, Professor. And you doing what you're supposed to do. Now, let me dive in real quick. Oh, what's your name, brother?
He's muted. You're muted, brother. I didn't mute you.
We spoken on a couple of occasions, but you probably won't record, so it's all good.
Say your name again, brother, because you were muted when he asked.
Sorry. I said Shakura. We have spoken on a couple of occasions, but you probably won't record.
Kind of a little bit, yeah. But I'm confused when maybe I'm mixing it up.
Yes.
You talk about us needing to call out our ancestors and have our history and our ancestors, and then you turn right around and start talking about someone else's culture. I'm very confused about that.
When you say someone else's, what do you mean?
I'm talking about the Hebrew. That's not.
No, I'm not affirming that, my brother. That's exactly why.
Yeah, he's saying the opposite, brother. He's with us. He's saying the opposite.
Okay, so he's not agreeing with the whole. Okay, so but then we talk about the brothers that supposedly was supporting Kyrie. That's
right. What I'm asserting is the fact that the brother was under an undue attack. I don't have to agree with the idea that we're Hebrews for me to support for me to understand when an African or another brother is being unduly attacked. And so if other brothers show him support, and I can see beauty in that, and I can acknowledge that. And that's the thing. I don't have to agree with necessarily the statement that they're making or their ideology or their position, but I don't believe that the attack against Kyrie Irving is a just one. And so on that particular point, I think he's worthy of defense.
So let me ask you this, brother Ankh. Do you
wait? Hold
think,
on, I got a point.
I know where
you
you're
going. Off, though.
I know. All right, go ahead.
So we now we fall in this position here. So I don't see Kyrie Irving shouting out being the original Yoruba. No, I'm under no obligation to support a brother who is actually supporting a myth that ain't his. So somebody got to say it. That don't mean that I don't have care and concern and empathy for the brother, because I do. He's in a position that most of us won't ever get to. Having $1 million to squander it away on a myth. I find the thing to be very bananas at a very, very high level. So he's going through his education of understanding who he is, right? Coming from ancestors that got caught up in the transcontinental kidnapping trade. We get that. And so he's learning in real time. But somebody got to tell a guy, knock it off. So just because a whole bunch of miseducated people ran through and act like they were supporting him, right? They ain't got $1 in their pocket neither, because if they did, they wouldn't be all out there like that. Trust me when I tell you. So they cheering for this man to lose his bread, right? And ain't got no money to replace that. So if he did go all the way in, how long will it take for the donations to run out for Kyrie Irving? He has generational wealth. He's in a position to actually uplift the greater African community and the African American community. You don't just squander money away like that on a myth, being hyped up and overzealous on misinformation. You just don't do it. It's not high level education. It's not beneficial, and it does the community no good. So I gotta say it. Yeah, they went out there in droves of numbers, but for a myth that's not even theirs, that absolutely has nothing to do with them. So I don't get it, but I have empathy for the brothers that ran outside in support of Kyrie Irving, really trying to support their cult. They're trying to get more numbers in their cult. I just got to call it what it is. Just call me the bad guy, right? They're taking advantage. It's a Photoshop, a photo op. A lot of attention now with the whole Hebrew thing. We didn't beat that half to death. Now all of a sudden it's in the forefront. We know who African people are. We know where they ended up at, because we study history and we use science as a lens to get that understanding of history. We're not running around supporting a myth. And then, by the way, right, give them people their myth back.
Come on, give it back.
To have their myth.
Thank you.
Now, I'm not one who will knock anybody who decides to follow a myth. It's not theirs. Most human beings do that. That's not a black thing. See, we tend to think it's a black thing, right? When we want to be the Hebrews or when we want to be the Native Americans. Human beings do that all the time. Plenty of human beings claim to be the Greeks and the Romans. Most Europeans aren't from Greeks or the Romans, but they profess it to be that. So we all do this. What I'm saying is, it's 2022. We have the lenses of science, right? Now we can actually critique our history and recognize where we're from. And anybody who can just read the Bible will say, knock it off, Kyrie. The Bible, Genesis, is in Asia somewhere. It clearly tells you that. Tigris, Euphrates River, Gihon and Pion, they don't know where that's at, right? So we can read and we clearly see that we ain't Ham. We predate the whole story as African people, right? We're the origin of humanity, and we support that. So Kyrie needs to knock it off, right? And as for the punishment he's getting, all he ever had to do was just apologize. That's one thing we know about that Jewish community.
And he did. He did apologize.
He did apologize, but
that's not a real apology.
The point, yeah, but I don't.
Let me finish, bro. You're gonna get yours, and I know you ain't gonna be. I got it. Let me finish. I just want to get it in because I know you're gonna get it in. Get it in. I'm saying it wasn't a real, genuine apology. We're not gonna sit and act like he really was trying to apologize. He did the slick thing. All he had to do was, you know what? I was wrong. I need to do more studying. Nick Cannon did the same thing. He apologized, man. And them people left this man alone. But the fact that he got slick with the apology, we all seen it. We know how to halfway apologize, right? They not buying that. Bro, get yourself educated. Go to Israel. Go where you want to go at. Learn your story. You tune in to Dr. Oyas show. Tune into the Pseudo Killers, the Real Black Atheists on the Raw Squad Media, right? And get your real story, bro, and knock it off. We need Kyrie to have his money so that he can support, right, the community on a whole like he's supposed to. But go ahead, bro.
Go ahead, brother Shakura. What are your thoughts?
No, I don't really disagree with much of what Brother Uncle said. I wasn't actually defending Kyrie Irving or the Hebrew or the position of the documentary.
Yeah, neither one of us, right?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm simply saying that the brother tweeted a documentary, right? And the idea that can be anti-Semitic to me is ludicrous. And if brothers feel the need to support him in that, and the attack that he's facing, I'm not gonna fight down the brothers for that. Now, when it comes to the issue of our Africanness and whether we're Hebrews and Jews and whatever, then we're gonna have some debates. And Dr. I've placed the video in the back chat, in the private chat for you.
Okay, thank you.
If you would like to play it. But yeah, so that's exactly my position. And as I've already said, for me, the essential point is that what happens is when we get into a lot of these debates, what we begin to do is keep the Bible and the Hebrew narrative central, and we never get to, well, who are we and where did we come from? What were the names of our actual ancestors? And so for me, calling those names is important, because when we call those names, we are identifying history, we are identifying culture, and we are identifying real people. Yeah. And maybe I'll go into this, but most of the names that I called, can be identified as real actual ancestors who existed. And so when we know those names, we can identify them with the cultures from which they come. And as Brother Uncle's already said, those cultures, by the way, big up my queen. That's my queen, by the way. And she's an avid watcher of Dr. Ma'at. So, you know what I'm saying? That's what I say.
Peace, queen. Peace.
When I told her I was coming on, she was very excited because she watch it all the while. You know what I mean? She watch it all the while. So
I love it when the queen's in the building. Peace to that queen. Go ahead, King.
Yeah. So that's it really, and I think it's fundamentally important that we engage these discussions. I'm also not convinced that the attack that Kyrie Irving is facing is just because of this one tweet. I think, for example, him coming live and saying I don't celebrate Thanksgiving is going to rub some people the wrong way in America. And I also happen to agree that there is some underhanded promotion going on at the moment as well in terms of this anti-Semitic accusation against Kyrie and Kanye. Yay. All right. And the reason why I say that is partly because of the fact that the documentary itself is still on Amazon and is still available, and sales of the documentary are shot through the roof.
I heard the guy that put it out is making money off of this,
making peace. And Jeff Bezos is not being questioned at all in terms of why the thing up on Amazon in the first place. So we know how these things go. There's some chicanery going on, and the documentary makers have got some free promotion and a lot of income as a result of it. So I wouldn't disagree with those things. So, but yeah, go ahead, Dr.
Yeah, let me play this video that went viral on Instagram and TikTok. And this is when I said I gotta holler at brother Shakura and have him come through. Here we go. Did you hear the audio or no?
No, I didn't hear the audio.
Okay, hold on. I probably didn't hit the button. I don't hit the button and people start yelling in the chat telling me I didn't hit the button. So here we go. Let's start it over.
I'm not a Jew. I'm not a Hebrew. I'm not an Israelite. See my ancestor them no name Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. See my ancestor them name Odudua and Orunmila. See my ancestor them name Abrewa and Kwekuanansi. See my ancestor them name Moyenge and Mochunde and Mondongo. See my ancestor them name Nana or Nani. See my ancestor them name Taki and Opongo. See my ancestor them name Busa and Klas. See my ancestor them name Nganga Zumba and Zumbi. See my ancestor them name Adbaraya Toya and Shaka and Nandi. Them are the name of my ancestor them. We not beg nobody else's ancestor. And furthermore, we not give praises to no divine being, but don't recognize and can't overstand the name of my ancestor them.
So I know when you put this out there, I can only imagine the comments when you said, I'm not a Jew, I'm not a Hebrew, I'm not an Israelite. And you was like, I'm African. And you said Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're not my ancestors. Then you started calling the names of our ancestors.
Yes, sir.
And then you said, wasn't that powerful? And then he said at the end, he said, I'm not worshiping none of them, quote unquote, divine beings. I'm worshiping my ancestors. So I can only, what kind of feedback did you get from releasing this video?
I'll be first of all, start with the positive. The overwhelming majority of the feedback has been positive. Yeah, okay. especially on TikTok. People are saying, well, thank you for saying that. Give thanks, because long time I said them thing there. Yes, call up the ancestor them name, and I get that. I appreciate that. But obviously, there's been a lot of negative. And the negative, as I'm sure most of you are aware of this dynamic, right? This disparity. The negative comes in two major camps. The first camp says those are Hamite names. We are not Africans at all. And there's a lot of arguments associated with that. Those are Hamites and we are not Hamites. Then the other argument says, well, actually, those are indigenous Hebrew names, right? This is the chicanery that's going on, right? So and again, right? And again, so this is this disparity that comes here with people that have the school of thought. As I was saying earlier, people view the world through a biblical lens. So they start with the Bible and anything that can correlate with it, and all kinds of leaps and acrobatics are done to ensure that we as the indigenous Bakongo and Akan and Ewe and Ga, yes, and Mande and Mbundu, etc., can somehow connect ourselves with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because everybody has to come from them if they are to be worth and worthy of anything in the world. And I'm saying no. Our indigenous ancestry is as worthy as any other ancestry out there. And as I said, a lot of those names were direct ancestors that we can identify in our history.
Brother Aunt, what's your thoughts?
Ashe.
That's right. He said Ashe. Right. Go ahead, brother.
And see, I'm the real black atheism. And that actually clears a space so that I can hear what the hell you're saying and don't get confused.
Mm-hmm.
So I have no need to want to align myself with the great Sky Daddy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel a need for that type of speed at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have a need to understand the walk that my ancestors took.
Mm-hmm.
I have a need to understand my humble beginnings as an African American, right? I have a need to want to know world history, to understand our place in the cosmos. See, I have that need. And so nobody's running around saying they are the original Akan. Why? Because they don't believe that Akan has a worthy God.
That's it.
Right?
That's
See,
it.
when we talk about gods, we talk about culture and tradition.
That's it.
That's all God is. It's an idea and a concept coming from human beings that is glorifying their position on earth. Right? Nobody's standing up for that. Kulu Kulu. You don't hear nobody say that. That's Zulu. Nobody's saying that. They talking about we Hebrew. Nah, man, they taking us right back into slavery. See, slavery is 90% mental. Right? We might be past the physical part of it, but now it's the mental hold they have on us. The Jewish people are cheering you right now, brother. They say, we respect that brother. He knows his history. They're not mad at you. They just saying, don't take our thing. Right? And
I disagree with that though, brother. I'll come back to that in a second.
They not. Now, trust me. But listen, I don't do no conspiracy, no superhuman white people thing or superhuman Jewish thing. I don't do that. because I know, based off our history where we come from, we have an inalienable right and have the ability to do the same thing that anybody does. We can kill people, right? We can heal people, right? We can create medicine, tradition, culture. We can do everything that everybody else can do. I refuse to think that we're subpar on any level. I don't accept it. I don't accept the mental constraints that have been placed on us by people telling the crazy story of the great white man that came and took Africa. They never really did that. They never really colonized all of Africa. Let's stop it. They didn't even come here and do the same thing. It was infectious disease, viruses, like the pathogen.
The Native Americans,
right, like the pathogen that circulated through America through the world for the last 2 years. Well, they brought smallpox to the New World, right? They had old world immunity. So the African and European wasn't affected. Their immune system was prepped for that. Native Americans had New World immunity. So it decimated them, knocked out half of the population. Wasn't nobody to really fight. So all that nonsense about how great they was, they couldn't even conquer Africa. The African had trained rock throwers that when the Europeans came in there with the one shotgun, pow, you gotta go pow, put the gunpowder in it, put the bullet in it, and you didn't got hit with about 50 rocks upside your head. And the spread was dangerous when the first Europeans came in, was knocking them across the field while they try to reload. They one shot, pow, you're done. So all that great, no, that's nonsense, bro. I'm not even feeding into that. So yes, when people recognize your history, they put you in a museum like they did Shakura Diop's.
They sure did put him in a museum.
Oh my God, he knows. They now call the Egyptians Africans. It's black people trying to act like, whoa, they ain't the real, they the kind of nah. Scholarship, academia, the whole nine yards clearly say that the Egyptians are an original indigenous African people. We don't have to argue that. So once you know your story, they be like, bet, just like Martin Luther King. And the super lawyer team, you had Thurgood Marshall. Well, they glorified them, man. They put them into what? Made them a justice. Come on, man. So listen, when you stand all the way up, it's part of the human condition. Once a person stand all the way up, man, you be like, man, they stood all the way up. Humans tend to back down after that point. So I hear what you're saying, bro. But trust me, yo, when people realize we know our story, yo, they ain't tripping like that, man. They just glad because then they know we'll put proper constraints on our community, right, and help us function better. Then they know we won't depend on them for everything. That's because that's what our culture do for us, bro. You know and I know. Our culture teach us that we can do for self, that we can be self-reliant in the whole landscape of human affairs. That's what our culture teaches, bro. And once we get that back, we ain't worrying about what somebody else got. We be focused on what we trying to get.
Affirming your final point, in terms of culture, and that was really the spirit of the video that was put out. But prior to that video, however, I did another video that featured Baba Tony Martin, basically with the caption detailing the idea that we are so focused on becoming and affirming that we are the original Jews and the Hebrew Israelites, that much of even our recent history in relation to teaching our history has been obscured, and how we have been attacked for teaching our own history. Dr. Ma'at, you hosted Baba McIntosh on your show previously, and he went into a lot of this history as it relates to Baba Kwakujua, Baba Leonard Jeffries,
right,
a man, by the way, who they are London, England, and we're very familiar with Baba Jeffries over here. He's come over regularly for African Liberation Day observances. In fact, he was the senior elder at my father and second mother's marriage ceremony,
wow,
in 2005. So we know Baba very, very well and are very familiar with the attack that African scholars, historians, cultural scientists came under in the late 80s and 90s for simply telling African history. Yes, right? This is what they were doing. Baba Sheikh Anta Diop came under attack for telling African history. Baba Tony Martin came under attack for simply telling African history, as did Baba John Henrik Clark, Baba Yusuf Ben Yochanan, etc., etc., etc. So I'm not under the illusion that when we just tell our history, that they're going to leave us alone. our history, recent history, does not even suggest that. Yeah, and there's a very important lecture where Baba Asa Hilliard is speaking at an ASCAP conference in the 90s, and it's entitled "The Attack on Africans Telling Their Own History," and he details how the American government and think tanks, yes, set up organizations, individuals, and institutions directly to come against the African-centered historian movement. Yeah, the African-centered scholarship movement. And so, whilst I'm sure there are many Jews who are glad that there are Africans who are not trying to call themselves Jews, there is a significant backlash. And the Jewish leadership establishment, institutions, and organization have been very much a part of this, in as much as they are a part of the system of Western imperialism. Yeah, in terms of attacking the capacity and the right of Africans telling our own history. And so we have to be mindful of that as well in these dynamics.
I kind of reject that.
Well,
that's the ghost in the room. You say what?
I'm not sure of the basis of your rejection, given the fact that the history is real, yeah, and it's ongoing. It's not even like it's a past thing. If we talk about,
you kind of cut me off.
Go ahead.
Let me say it. You might get it. So there's a running thing. I call it the ghost in the room, right? And that ghost in the room is the misinformation around our elders, what they did and what they didn't do. So being in the grand scheme of things in academia, you're going to get attacked. That's what academia does. They attack each other on points that you may have gotten wrong, right? So we know that Diop's helped write this 9-volume set. He was part of the scientific community. It's called UNESCO. So I'm trying to figure out what attack was that. They put him, they recognize him as being part of the scientific community. It was Shigant Diop, Theophile Banga, and Walter Rodney. They was on that committee. And they brought their evidence, and they said they brought their evidence at a very high level. Some points were outright rejected that they brought, and some points were made clear. So that never was the problem. The problem was what was the community mischaracterizing the whole daggone thing. I've done detailed study on the Cairo Symposium. I've done study on people like Lekowicz, who's actually was right about some points. She just was. And we being a new culture, we take offense to people challenging us. See, when you play the game at the highest level, right, you're going to get challenged. And you should never take the challenge as being some kind of racist thing, because now you're trying to use it as leverage in a situation that don't need it. So Diop's never needed that leverage. He came with what he came with. Dr. Ben didn't need that leverage. He came with what he came with. So when people like Lekowicz was saying that, yo, you was wrong right here, if you look it up, he actually was wrong. But the broader community was like, oh, that's racist. So every time they was trying to make a point about some things that our elders may have been wrong about or may have been right about, but the greater community hadn't caught up with it yet, people would cry racism. And I'm saying that that's not, no one was wild out on you for saying that you was African, right? No more than they wild out on Charles Darwin for saying all of humanity was African. They did that, right?
They did. Yeah, they did.
They did. Yeah, because that was the whole scientific racism piece. So I'm saying they wasn't worried about that piece. The piece was that they was out of their mind wild races based off of the pseudoscientific concept called race, which actually big up them. So the study of Egypt actually big up them and supported their view on why they should enslave us, right? You know, all the skulls and all the digs they did, the mischaracterization of African history and all that nonsense, right? That supported the slavery, right? So that fight was more than just a fight for our history, bro. That was actually a fight for our humanity that they was barking up against Martin Luther King you know what I'm saying, Dr. Ben and them. You talking about the political struggles they was fighting over, you know, trying to get us in a position where we needed to be, you know what I'm saying, as Americans and African Americans. That was the fight. But as far as the history piece, nah, I reject that, bro. Now, we got a lot of that wrong, right? I'm saying that I'm not talking about the elders. Of course, they got things wrong because it was information that wasn't available. But the greater community, looking at the situation, they always cried foul, right? When everything that our great scholars brought wasn't accepted. And I'm saying that's bananas right there.
Yeah, no. Now I do agree with that point that that our elders, and we see it now, brother. You know, you and I was going back and forth. Remember when y'all was saying y'all wanted to retire? They came before Columbus. I think it was one of your young boys that came on there. And remember, I was saying that there were people in the community who were attacking the elders, and I said, well, no. They were just working with the information that they had at that particular time. That's it. That's all. And so they did get some things wrong, and we should. And remember, I said that we shouldn't be ashamed. You know, and I said in other cultures, you know, they still venerate their ancestors and elders, irregardless of whether they got things wrong. So I always give that example of, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, right? I gotta go back and look, but I always give that example of the electricity. Exactly. Yeah, how he thought it was due. Yeah, he thought that, I want to say it was Ben Franklin, but he thought that electricity was due to the flow of protons. And then later on, we find out that is actually due to the flow of electrons. The electrons are flowing in one directions, and the protons, right, and the protons are flowing in the other. But we figured that out. But even still, they regard him as the father of electricity. You know, so they didn't. You know, so the point that I'm trying to make, family, is that our elders did get some things wrong, and it's okay, because I'm sure that there's some things that I'm going to put out there that later on in 20, 30 years, somebody going to come back and say, Dr. Mad had that wrong. We have new information, or we uncovered additional information. You get what I'm saying? It happens every generation. So I don't think that we should go around and romanticize our elders and ancestors and act like they got everything right, because they did. Go ahead, Brother Shakura.
No, the issue for me, and I would agree that our ancestors and the elders didn't get everything correct.
Right.
But nor did the people that were attacking them. Right.
Oh, absolutely.
And the fact is that they were attacked. This is not something that is questionable. This is documented, and the brother has actually mentioned one of the books that I was going to name that documents this specific attack, which is the Jewish Onslaught, where Baba Tony Martin is detailing the attack that he faced for simply teaching about the enslavement of African people, and including the Jewish involvement in that enslavement.
And they were involved.
And so he wrote the book to detail the backlash that he faced for simply adding this to what he was already teaching. Yes. And so the facts of the matter, the truth of the matter didn't matter when it came to that particular narrative. Yeah. And also, let me make this clear, because I'm not an African who depoliticizes any issue. Yes, I don't depoliticize any issue, and I don't think we can afford to in this particular dispensation of time. When I spoke about the lecture from Baba Asa Hilliard, what I said was he actually detailed the lobby organizations and think tanks, yes, that were using people like Henry Louis Gates and Thomas Sowell and others, yes, directly to attack the African-centered scholarship movement and the Black activist movement, because they understood that there wasn't a massive separation between the two. It was a political issue. Yeah. So treating it like it's not political is ahistorical. It's to do an injustice to the history. And I would suggest that all brothers and sisters check out the lecture once again from Baba Asa Hilliard, the ancestor, the great ancestor. Yes. Entitled "The Attack on Africans Telling Our Own History." This is not conjecture. This is not speculation. This happened.
Oh, and no, it did happen.
Right. And the motivations behind it are clearly documented and spoken to by brothers and sisters and elders who were involved in it at the time. Baba McIntosh spoke to it himself, yeah, only a few days ago on this very platform. Watch that that particular interview again. It can be spoken to, yeah. But I don't want to derail the topic.
No,
of the show.
I think where you at is a good point. And once again, I'm gonna have to reject that. And the reason I'm rejecting that is because that that's what academia does. And then the over characterization. So watch this. If you make a statement that white people enslaved this man, it wasn't even all white people. You can actually detail what nations participated, right? And you should name them.
What nation?
Right? So then you should name the Jewish people or the Jewish company that
and that's what they did. But that's what they did. But that's exactly what that's the point. That's exactly what they did. Yeah. So this is the point. There was never a narrative that said all Jews enslaved all black people.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
That was never the narrative.
This is what I'm going to do.
But let us not let us not do it. We can correct the elders.
Hey, Shaba, relax, bro. I don't want to raise the temperature. I can roar like a lion. I don't want to do that. I just want to converse with you. We just have diverse opinions. We're not actually saying you're wrong. I was just having a conversation. Go ahead, brother. What you drinking over there, man?
Minty.
I see. Slow down. Slow down.
Right? So yeah, no, I am. If you are observing the fact that I'm a passionate African, I stand guilty. That's charged. But
you're not more passionate than me.
Yeah, I know that for a fact.
You're not more passionate than me.
So then what I'm saying to you is humbly.
I'm not yelling today.
I'm saying humbly, don't confuse my passion for hostility. Yeah, that's
no, I'm not. Right? I'm not. I'm definitely not confusing your cutoff artistry with any of that. So you're cutting off. That has nothing to do with your love and passion for black people. I got the same level, and I don't.
Brother, if I indeed cut you off, would you like to complete your statement?
Yes, I would like to complete my statement.
Go ahead, my brother. I'll speak after you.
I'm simply saying, yes, a lot of things were political, but they wasn't tripping off of us talking about the slave trade. They was picking us to be like, you know how you nitpick a person? They was like, yo, get it all right then. Don't just tell partial of it. Don't make the Jewish people this and that, because we can go over that. See, we can actually sit down and read what Tony Martin wrote. We can read it and then match it up. Like, that's fun for me. So I'm saying we could do that. I could take a week. I can read over the documentations. Like, I got the book. What's the one that you can read the reviews on the one that Nation of Islam wrote? They wrote 2 books.
The Secret Relationship Between Blacks.
Yeah, come on, man. So a lot of people think that was top-notch scholarship. Not really. It was all right, but not really. They was really going real far, right, on a lot of points. And they did the Nation of Islam thing. It wasn't no top-notch level scholarly work. People might disagree with me, but I can prove otherwise. Tony Martin, yeah, okay. A lot of times they come on your head when you don't get that thing right. See, so when you start talking the same way we do it, when you start talking about the slavery of African people, bro, get that right. Don't start hollering about, oh, the Africans enslaved themselves. Me and you both, you, Dr. Nyad, if we had the power, yo, you wouldn't be selling no more shoes. Say that again. Say that African people enslaved themselves. I dare you say it. And imagine we had $1 billion industry to back us up. You're in trouble. The truth is that you had separate African nations. No more different than France and the Brits, right? And the Greeks and the Romans, right? They're different nations, bro. They don't think they're the same people. Same way in Africa. That's a misnomer. They didn't think, nor did they know anything about modern science that could connect them. They didn't know that. They never knew that. They didn't care about that. Yeah, we fighting, dog. We getting it in. And as a consequence of you waging war on me, bro, you are now a prisoner. And I will sell you. See? But all that, they sold their own people, that's a bunch of malarkey. And if we had the money and resources, yo, we would smash them out the same way they do. Oh, did you apologize? Okay, we take it all back. We good. Get it right. That's my point.
All right. Well, thank you very much, brothers. So let's move on because y'all going back and forth. Let's get to the topic at hand. Let's talk about us being Africans. How do we know? How do we know? You got, what's the dude name, Brother Uncle on YouTube? The fool. I call him the Dane Calloway. So you got him, Dane Conaway. So he's telling our people that the Ma'afa never happened. that we are indigenous to America and all kinds of stuff. And they really believe it. Like a lot of our people support Dane Calloway. So when you say we African, how do we know? How do you know? How do you know, Brother Shakura? How do you know, Brother Ankh, that we are undoubtedly African? And by the way, Dr. Ma'at will say, yes, we are African. So if someone wants to ask me my position, that is my position. But how do you know? And I'm going to give the floor to the brothers.
Yeah, the reality is, and let me start by looking at what I said in the video. The reality is that we centralize the narrative of our ancestors, yeah? And so the reason why those names were called is because we can identify the groups of Africans who were actually enslaved. Yeah. So when we mentioned the Yoruba, we mentioned the Igbo, we mentioned the Fon, we mentioned the Ewe, we mentioned the Umbundu, the Bakongo, the Mande, the Mandinka, etc., etc. And so once we identify these groups, we understand that there are names, yes, associated with the culture of these groups. So when I say Fime ancestor them name Odudua and Orunmila, Odudua is said to be the progenitor of the Yoruba people. Orunmila is the most ancient chief priest, the person who is said to have codified the Ifa system. Yeah. When I say Fime ancestor them name Abrewa, yes, and Kwekua Nancy, Abrewa is considered to be, well, the name gives connotations of the old woman. Yeah. One of the more ancient ancestors of the Akan or the Ashanti people. The name Kwekua Nancy comes from the same group of people that is what is called an abosom. Yes. So we're now identifying the culture of the people, yeah, the Ashanti or the Akan people. And Kwekua Nancy is said to be a human archetype as well. Yes. And so that's why I called that name. When we say names like Taki and Apongo, one is a West African name. There's a variation of it in the Akan language, but also in the Ga language. We're not sure exactly which one it comes from in terms of the individual. But Taki led an anti-slavery rebellion in Jamaica in 1760. Incidentally, it was as a result of the work of Taki, yes, why African spiritual systems were actually formally banned on the island of Jamaica and throughout the English-speaking Caribbean. Yeah. And so that's an important point because it signifies a part of why we have this loss in cultural and historical continuity. Apongo is a Bakongo ancestor that was also a war general in that 1760 rebellion, which was the biggest anti-slavery rebellion in the Caribbean before Haiti kicked off. Yeah. In 1791. Okay. And so these are actual ancestors, and many of them were born on the continent of Africa. And these are names that they brought with them. Yes. To the Americas. When we say Adbadaya Toya, that was one of the woman warriors, the woman leaders of the Haiti Revolution. Yeah, she's from the Fon people that are today reside in Benin. Yeah, come to Haiti with the name Adbadaya, and she's actually the woman warrior who militarily trained Baba Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who brought the revolution to its fruition. Absolutely. When we say Mondongo, and I love this part. When we say Mondongo and Machunde and Moyenge, these are Bakongo names that were preserved among the Kumina practitioners on the island of Jamaica. Kumina is a spiritual system or a ritual that was brought with our Bakongo ancestors, and it's important. In fact, you know what? Can I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, let me because we're dealing with scholarship today. Yeah, brother Art brought the scholarship vibration. Let me just drop some scholarship.
What's the question, though, Doc?
No, I said, how do you know we're African? And he's getting into that. Go ahead, brother Shakura.
I'm trying to figure out he got the going on the answer. I'm like,
yeah, no, we have to know who our ancestors them are. So I'm explaining how we know who our ancestors are. Yeah,
go ahead, brother. Where
am I going with this?
I'll never knock you on that.
Let's go here. All right. So this is taken from a paper by a sister by the name of Diane M. Stewart. Yeah, Kumina, a spiritual vocabulary of nationhood in Victorian Jamaica. Yeah, and she starts by citing a theory from a Baba by the name, who's passed now. Baba by the name, he's a linguist and a cultural scientist by the name of Olabi Yai. He passed away 2 years ago. All right. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'm going to go here where she says Yai is on point where he concludes Kumina is in his thesis because mirroring social organization patterns of their kin in the visible world. The African gods, quote unquote, the African gods are from tribes and nations, yeah, which relates to something that Unc was saying earlier. This unnamed informant went on to explain to anthropologist Joseph Moore the significance of Manuka Vola and the definitive nations comprising the Kumina community. Quote, take Manuka Vola. He is a great ancestral spirit who now is so strong, he become a strong earthbound god of the whole Congo nation. So the Kumina community in Jamaica is known as the Congo nation. Yes, there are 5 divisions or groups in the Congo nation. We got Moyenge, who Manuka Vola serves since he is the head of this group. We got Machunde, we got Congo, we got Mondongo, we got Mumbaka, honored as a tribal head and renowned for his raid-making abilities. Manuka Vola, which is more properly pronounced in Bakongo, Manuka Mvula, hailed from Morant Bay. He was established in Johnston, an area near Duanipen. Yeah, this is the area in Jamaica. When he died in 1928, around the age of 80, 80. This celebrated ritual specialist most likely assumed a leading role in Kumina ceremonies among later generations of liberated Central Africans who took up residence in post-emancipation Jamaica. For Vola is remembered as a very old African born in Africa. And later on in the paper, she goes on to talk about how these names, Mondongo, Moyenge, Manuka, etc., were actually the different divisions of the entire of the entire Congo nation, because they were actually organized as a nation and had a queen and had various different queens and so on and so forth. And so the point I'm making is that our spiritual systems, our culture, and in many ways, even our indigenous governance systems were preserved among us in the diaspora. So if we want to know where we come from, we can find it if we have the inspiration and the intellect and the intention for do so. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. So you're saying that we see our culture everywhere we are. We see our culture, we see our history. And so you came from the cultural and historical perspective. And that's what I love when I have a panel with some folks. So you're coming from that lens, the cultural and historical lens. And I know, brother Ankh is going to bring that science. Brother Ankh, how do you know that we're African, brother?
I'm going to bring the science of record keeping.
Come on.
Considered to be chattel, right? Like products and goods. They was meticulous. European nations were meticulous in record keeping. It was a business. Shipping, right? You send one ship to Africa. On the way there, you take products and goods. You have them all notated, what products you got, just like shipping today. What do we have in the 18-wheeler? We got a stack of this, a stack of that, bye. On the manifesto, you write it down, boom, by the time you get there, boom, we unpack it, boom, put the slaves. How many slaves? Records. Bam, 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 bam. So they kept records because it was a business. That's how we know where we from, because they kept records. Where they took these people from Africa and they wrote it down because they didn't see us to be humans. They seen us to be products and goods. And that's one thing they do. You know what I'm saying? Man, they keep their money close to their heart. Record keeping at the highest level. That's how we know we from Africa.
So you said the records. So Brother Ankh, you said that there are records that we can see. And what about, via DNA? How do you feel about that? So you're saying the records, and what about
that's a different conversation. Right? We don't want to use DNA to start the practice race science. Like, oh yeah, you got this DNA, might mean that. But populations do group together, okay, cluster together. So like the Egyptians clustered together with people in Africa, right, and around the outskirts, right? Okay, Native Americans clustered with people in North and South America. They clustered together, okay, and so we don't even gotta go that deep. Gotcha. We could just use the common sense, not the common sense, because sense ain't common.
Sense ain't common. I was getting ready to say
that.
Don't say that.
Hell ain't common. Okay, but if you want to say that we the original people here and we always been here, then we got a problem. Okay, because you can read the works of Charles Darwin. Okay, and we learn about biological human evolution. So it was Charles Darwin. And see, we talk about a mindset. Okay, so I think because it's 2022, we actually forget the mindset. So when I'm talking Charles Darwin, I'm talking about a time period in the 18 somethings, right? I'm talking about a time period where the planet Earth actually thought they came from their creation story. So, like if you was in Africa, depending on one of the cultures you came from, you actually thought that you came from that story. It was your ancestors' tale, right? But if you was a European or Muslim, right, you actually thought you came from the Bible narrative.
That's what.
Well,
Yep.
come on. It's your creation story. Charles Darwin come in and shake up the whole boat. He was like, nah, 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 nah. Nah, 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 nah. He said we come from Africa, right? So he's one of the first people, right? And this guy right here that wrote the book, let me see, Albert Churchwood. I thought I had it right here. Yeah, here you go. Nah, that's Chancellor. That's Diop. No, I don't need Chancellor. I don't need Diop. I need this one right here. It was written in 1918. Yeah, Albert Churchwood. You can find some copies that John Henry Clark writes the actual forward right here. Here you go. This is groundbreaking. The origin and evolution, okay, of the human race, published first in 1918. So remember, Charles Darwin wrote his groundbreaking work, I think in 1890 something. Okay, and he actually, when he wrote that work, Origin of the Species, right, by way of natural selection or by way of favorite races, and people always mess that up. They think when he's talking about races, he's talking about human beings. He's not, because he only talked about animals in the book, because he knew y'all wasn't going to be ready, because it was the first time in annals of history that you even connected yourself to all of nature. You would have to go back to African cosmology, where they connect themselves to all of nature. See what I'm saying? And so this is groundbreaking, mind-shifting data, and it's a scientific prediction that he made, because when he was in Africa, because he circumnavigated the globe to see the different variations, right? Different variations of plants, animals, insects. Okay, and as he traversed, he realized that, man, these people that y'all enslaving are just as intelligent as anybody. All you have to do is teach them their language, teach me your language, and they're just as intelligent as anybody. He understood this. He understood the variation, different size lips, different types of hair. He's seen it. He's seen it in the finches, Charles Darwin finches. He's seen the different variations. He's seen certain finches based off where they was at. They had longer beaks and shorter beaks. The ones that lived near the sand that was heavier or deeper, they had these longer beaks to get the worms. The ones that didn't, they was on the shores that the sand was lower. They could get the worms out the ground. The beaks were shorter. He recognizes. He notated it, right? And so he's the first game-changing mind shift that went up against the pseudoscientific stance that enslaved African people. This is Charles Darwin. But people are taught, oh, he's a racist. I don't know what he was. I'm simply saying that he brought that scientific prediction. He predicted that in the future, you will find ancient hominids, right, that closely align themselves, you know what I'm saying, to other anthropod apes. And guess what? Later on down the line, they found it, right? And so based off of that information, right, you can't just say we're from Africa. What's the origin of humanity? You can't say it. You have to prove it, and we prove it through biological human evolution based off of Charles Darwin work. Shout out to Al-Jaheed. He wrote a 7-volume set, the Book of Animals. He's an African, Sudanese, right? Al-Jaheed, look him up. Okay, he first reported evolution in nature. Okay, so yeah, we use biological human evolution to know the origin of humanity, and all humans are mutations from the original. We recognize this. There's no difference. All humans are 99.99 the same. We ain't gonna play that game, right? But if it was me, right, I'm saying the checkmate piece is the origin of humanity is in Africa, not the biblical narrative, not the Zulu narrative, not the ancient ancestor narrative. No, it's grounded in the things that Mother Earth have left us. Those who study Mother Earth at a high level will get the answers they seek to get.
So let's unpack this myth. Brother Shakura and Brother Ankh. The whole myth, because y'all keep saying it's a myth, it's a myth, it's a myth. The Bible, the creation story, it's a myth. So where did we get this whole idea of a Jew from? And then somebody said it in the chat room, but I want you brothers to answer that. The whole idea of Jew and Judea and these people, and I want you all to break down the myth and why, the Hebrew Israelites, how they're trying to fit themselves. How did they fit themselves into the story? So we already have established that this is a myth. How did we get involved in the myth? How did we get involved in the story? So they're saying we are the lost tribe of Judah. Is that not correct? Like we're the original Jews. We're the tribe of Judah. But that's not what the myth says. So can we break down the myth, in the biblical myth? Like what? So someone that's listening, what are they talking about? The biblical myth. So can we go back in time and break down the whole concept of a Jew? Where does that come from? So let's go all the way back to the Old Testament.
I'll leave that to Ark because you probably break it down better than I would.
I like the Noah Ark story. For me, is always a great place to start. And so the great God destroyed the whole earth because of a couple people. Hey, kill all of them, kill animals. Animals ain't did nothing. I'm gonna flood the whole earth out, kill everybody. I'm gonna save Noah though, which is very similar to the story that the Sumerian narrative. Okay, Utnapishtim, the gods came to him and said, we're going to kill everything, but, build this boat, we're going to save you. Back to the Noah's Ark story. So God, in all his infinite wisdom, right, he kills everybody. Leave Noah, right, his wives and his sons. And save all, he got 2 of this and 2 of that and 2 of that. I don't know how he had that many animals on the boat. You know what I'm saying? The poop would have overwhelmed them.
Right.
They'd have been up to their neck in poop. You couldn't shovel enough of the poop off the boat. See,
talking about it, and brother, they were locked in. What was it? How many days and how many nights they were locked in?
42 days and 42 nights. That's a lot of poop. That's a lot of shoveling for Noah and them. I don't think they'd have been up to date. They couldn't have breathed. They'd have died from poop initiation. They'd have been asphyxiated with poop. They couldn't have breathed. Anyway. And so this water subsides, right? And they get off the boat. Now, what's the first thing that Noah do when he get off the boat? Noah decides to plant a vineyard, grapes. He plants the grapes and he makes wine. He get drunk. This is the first thing this man do. He gets drunk. He not only gets drunk, he get take your clothes off drunk. How do we know he get take your clothes off drunk? Because Ham, his son, walks by his father and say, he just looks at him and keep going. So obviously Noah been drinking for a long time because it didn't even bother his son. That's like a normal thing to do. Like if one of your parents is a drunk, you be like, oh, they drunk. It's Saturday night, they get drunk. Would they be drunk? You leave them there. That's all Ham does. He simply looks at Noah and keeps walking and tells his brothers. Now his brothers go there, all nice, I'm going to cover them up, right? This is the story now. So what happens to Ham's grandson, Canaan? He gets cursed. He gets cursed because Ham, now God don't know, right? God don't know that the only thing that Ham did was look at his drunken father. God don't know that it was Noah that got drunk and took his clothes off, but he decides to curse Ham. Now, who's Ham? Ham is said to be what later on become the African tribes, right? They come out of the area, Iraq. What's the mountain that the Ark lands on? What's it called? Man, I can't even think of the place where the Ark lands. It lands Mount Ararat, right? Okay, the Ark lands in Mount Ararat, right? Boom, they get off, he get drunk, boom. And then Ham looks at the drunken father and they walk, right? They walk and become the Africans. Shem becomes the Semitic people and Japheth becomes the white people. He goes to the northern area, right? So what is the curse? The curse is supposed to be, right, that Ham will become a slave, watch this, to the Semites, right, and to the white people. This is the story that we follow. So now, the guys that supporting, quote unquote, Kyrie Irving, they don't want to be Ham. No, they don't want to be African. Oh, no. Because Shem is supposed to be the chosen one of God. Dr. Mia, why are the Semites chosen of God? Why are the Hebrews chosen of God? Doc, do you know?
Go ahead, brother. You break it down.
Because they wrote it. Like if we write the story, yo, we go, I'm chosen of God. You know what I'm saying? They wrote it, so they make themselves the chosen of God. Right? And so don't nobody want to be Ham, because Ham was cursed with what? Would you be a slave and a servant to Shem and Japheth. And by the way, Noah was drinking Thunderbird. He had to be, because he took off his clothes. Drunk. But God don't know that. So yeah, the whole thing is mythology. And the mythology clearly shows where you're at in the damn mythology. We're African people, proven by evolution, proven by fossil record. The Bible itself is a tribe somewhere in Palestine, Judea, right? A tribe that don't even get literate to around 600 BCE. Your people been writing since 3500 BCE in Nubian Egypt, right? These are African people, right? They're writing already. The Hebrews don't even get to writing until about 600 BCE. You want to say something, brother?
No. Just to follow on for what you're saying, the actual Hebrew people are said to have come into being with Abraham. Yes, this is where and they become a significant people within the story because of Abraham's covenant, with God, and this covenant with God is supposed to basically define the flow of human development from that time until now. But as far as it relates to us as African people, we have to be mindful of the fact that a significant aspect of that story is that the element whereby these individuals, the descendants of Abraham, are enslaved supposedly in ancient Kemet, for a significant period of time. And when we're talking about history, there is no evidence of this ever having happened. Yes. But within the narrative, of Exodus, the demonization of indigenous African spiritual systems and culture is a part of that narrative.
Absolutely.
Yahweh pronounces judgment, upon Egypt because of the gods that Egypt is supposed to be worshiping. Yahweh pronounces judgment upon Egypt as an act of the demonstration of his supremacy over the gods of Egypt. And so when in the 1800s and the 1900s and the 2000s and so on, some Africans begin to reconstruct our history, and place the Nile Valley civilizations as central to that history, there are many Africans who are already indoctrinated against that Nile Valley culture, and those Nile Valley spiritual systems. The historical continuity is already broken. We don't want to be identified with that culture, especially against a God like Yahweh and a people who are considered to be chosen by this particular God. And so that's the psychological impact of this myth as far as it relates to African people, in my humble estimation.
No, thank you so much for that. Hold on, brother. I want to say this. So they in the chat they're saying it says that Canaan was cursed. They said not Ham. Oh, okay.
Grandson.
Okay, you did say, and it says no, bro. Noah's son slept with one of Noah's wives and had Canaan.
No, he made it up. See, I don't like that. See, no. Go find that verse. Tell the brother to put the chapter and verse where that happened.
Yeah, just my 4 cents. Put that in there. Put a reference.
Either way, whether it was Canaan or whoever.
No. We're not either way.
Hold on. Wait, let me make the point. The terminology that is used is in relation to who's a Hamite, and who's a Shemite, and so on and so forth. And so when so even in my comment section, as you was asking me earlier, Dr. Ma'a, one comment said something to the degree of carry on Hamite, when the God of Yahweh opens up the sky and sends down the thunder. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? What's this to say? Keep the same energy on Judgment Day.
Oh
You
Lord.
know what I'm saying? So it's all. But the point I'm making is that the Hamite terminology is still used. So people on planet Earth, people groups are being defined by the Shem, dichotomy. Yeah. So to say it wasn't Ham, it was Canaan is really neither here nor there, because Hamite is the term that is used for these people that were supposed to have been enslaved by the descendants of the other two.
No, thank you so much. So let me ask you brothers a question. When did the whole introduce?
Hold on. Can't change.
What happened?
Where the verse at?
Oh yeah, I'm waiting for them to put it in the chat.
Yeah,
so until he put that in the chat, I'm gonna ask this question. My next question is this: who brought that whole idea of us being Hebrew Israelites to the Black community in the chart with the 12 tribes? This tribe is the Puerto Ricans. This tribe is the African Americans. This tribe is this tribe. Who brought that whole idea of us being Hebrew Israelites and the 12 tribes of Israel and all of that? And this is the African American, this is the Puerto Rican, this is the Native American. Who brought that to the community?
You know, I can't remember the names of all the different ancestors who promoted this doctrine. I'm not even going to try to recall all of the names. So, except to say that there are many who have promoted this idea, but not all did. So, for example, there were some Hebrew Israelites or people that believe that we are the original Hebrews, but believe that we associated us with Ethiopia and Africa. Yes, they had an African consciousness. They weren't anti-African, like a lot of the Hebrews that we see today. Yeah, I believe that the thing about the 12 tribe chart that comes much later, it doesn't even make any sense. One person said, no, if you're from Jamaica, then you are the tribe of Dan, I think he said.
Right.
And this is a part of the narrative that we need to get into, because part of the narrative is the idea that the Africans on the continent, yes, sold Hebrews into slavery. Yeah, so they knew that there was a grand conspiracy supposedly among all of the different groups in Africa to get rid of Hebrews, yes, and sell them to the white man. And as Ankh said, the white man was so meticulous with the records that he knew exactly which tribe of the 12 that all of these Africans came from, and made sure that they all got to specific islands. Yes, right. Only people from this tribe can go to Jamaica. Only people from this tribe can go to what became known as the United States of America. Only people from this tribe can go to Haiti. Yes, and all these things. Yeah, it's an illogical argument. But I'll leave the details of like Wentworth and them and so on and so forth to Garfield and them. We leave that to them, brethren. There, you know what I'm saying?
I got you. Right, the pseudo ship. So, Brother Ankh, let me ask you this, and shout out to Brother Omawale Africa. Hold on, Brother Ankh. Shout out to Brother Omawale Africa. Want to salute that brother in the building. King Simon, I see you in the building. Brother Akil, Hystematics, I see you in the building. Brother Akil said we should discuss why African people feel the need to adopt these mythological stories.
I know.
Let's go.
Slavery pushes you in a position to suffer from an inferiority complex. And so, white people's water is actually colder than black people's water. White people's God is better than African gods, Roman gods. Anything is better than that. Jewish gods, Hebrew gods, definitely better than Ephah. Right, boy, we don't want to go to hell. And so we have fear implanted in us through the transcontinental kidnapping trade. And this fear carries on to this very day. You are actually afraid to denounce the God that your mortal enemy gave you. And I'm saying your mortal enemy because anybody that takes your freedom from you becomes your enemy. And anybody that promotes racism is not only an enemy to you, is an enemy to humanity. Adolf Hitler fought a war based off of crazy, the Alpine race, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed race. Man, his whole doctrine was based off of pseudoscience and race. Right? They fought a war, a world war off of a pseudoscience. Man, it throws the whole planet Earth out of whack. The whole racism piece is based off of foolery and nonsense. at the end of the day. And so through all of that, man, we feel inferior. We are afraid to announce our gods to the world. We're afraid to try the juju and the voodoo. I tried all that. That's why I can sit here as the atheist and say, man, it was fun. It was fun doing it. But see, the fact that I had no fear. See, people, they don't, hey man, you be having some success in your life, and brother Unc and them and Shaka and them, they talking, oh man, doctor, well, I don't know. I'm afraid because we're superstitious to the bone, right? Because we lost our way based off of misinformation, based off of being handled real super crazy. Yo, we don't nobody, man, we not going to denounce the great God. We just going to make him black. See what I'm saying? Yeah, it's called inferiority complex, Doc, and that's what it is.
Can I introduce an important text into the conversation?
Go for it.
And we'll see how it goes here. But it's this particular beautiful book right here, written by a great ancestor by the name of Baba Colby Cambon, and it's called Cultural Misorientation. Yeah.
I now Shakura, you know I reference that book all the time.
You know what I'm saying? So I thought you'll enjoy this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The reason why I'm raising this here is because I am a Black nationalist Pan-Africanist. I'm a universal African nationalist. I'm a Garveyite. And so history and cultural reconstruction for me has a purpose. And that purpose is the liberation of and unification of Africa and all African people. Yeah. And so the reality is that when we talk about these discussions, yes, they take place in a political context. Yeah, they take place in the political context that we live in a world that is dominated by a global hegemony, which is referred to as the West, that revolves around the axis and the institutions of the axis of Western Europe. Yes, and yes, their scholarship traditions are a part of their European imperialist axis. Yeah, and so part of the reason why there is cultural misorientation among African people is because cultural misorientation serves the purpose of weakening us in relation to the system of European imperialism. It also means that our first line of defense, which is, yes, our strong identity and the cultural affirmation and reconstruction that comes with that, is no longer in place. And so when we have these conversations, I think, humbly, I suggest it's very important for us to put it in that context, and in the context of the fact that African identity is essential and indispensable in relation to African liberation. And so these people have a vested interest in ensuring, I mean, we talked about slavery earlier and the extent to which the narrative is out there that Africans sold other Africans into slavery. But this is, in fact, the dominant narrative as associated with our enslavement as put out there by European scholars. And it is also the dominant narrative that those among us who are culturally misoriented, the same argument is used by them as a denial of our Africanness. All of the groups, look at all of the groups that are chanting, we are not African right about now, they're all repeating that same narrative in terms of Africans sold us, into slavery as a justification for the separation from Africanness. And even more insidiously, a means by which they can replace our African affirmation, and affiliation with for them own identity, with an allegiance to America, with an allegiance to Britain, with an allegiance to France. And once we remain allegiant to these nations and their identities and their institutions, we are incapable of challenging their domination and their exploitation of us as African people and our brothers and sisters around the world.
Powerful. Brother Aunt, did you want to jump in?
This is my man right here, the pseudoscientist. This where they get it from Babylon and Timbuktu. This is the first book you read when you're trying to be a Black Hebrew.
And they promote this book on Instagram a lot, Brother Aunt. I've seen that book promoted a whole lot.
Rudolph Windsor.
Another one, sorry, brother, not to interrupt you, but another one is Hebrewisms in West Africa.
Yeah, nonsense. See, all the way across that. You gotta leave the Holy Land and end up there. Come on, man. Like God couldn't stop it. Think about that. You mean tell me God couldn't stop that? Why we gotta go all the way to West Africa to capture them? Why could we just stay with? All right, let me stop. So right here, it says the sons of Noah were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Because the world was populated from these three sons of Noah, it is proper to classify men only according to this classification: Shemites, Hamites, and Jebusites, and not Caucasian, Mongoloid, and Negroid. It said the latter categories is a modern anthropological classification that we will deal with more thoroughly. It said the parts of the earth inhabited by the children of Shem were parts of territory of Assyria, Elam, east of the Tigris Euphrates River, and eastern parts of Syria and parts of Arabia Peninsula. It say all the children of Shem were black. You see that? But y'all heard the names I was giving. I was giving you all Middle Eastern names. Watch this. This position will be supported by arguments and facts later. The second classification of mankind was the Hamites, who controlled the great centers of civilization in the ancient time 4000 BCE. Soon after the flood, this civilization includes the continent of Africa. See that? The land of Canaan, Israel, parts of Arabia, Syria, and Phoenicia, Turkey, Babylonia, Ionia, southern Persia. Yeah, see, he just mumble jumbling, man. So if you reading this book right here, yo, you mumble jumble up at this point. So your whole orientation. See, the conversation is really about orientation. They're like, where is your mind orientated? We know what the Europeans were orientated to. So when they came into Africa, they called the Egyptians the great white black race. That's what they said. Yeah, they the Northerners. I could pull the map up. They call them the Northerners, right? All the way from Europe straight on down to the Nile Valley, they called them white people. That's the most ridiculous, because when they went there, remember, they was orientated, okay? Their orientation, where they stand, where they come from. Their mind was grounded in Christianity, first of all. You end up in a place that has things that your world never had. So imagine that. You already think you come from the biblical text, right? And you surmise that the text based off of Bishop Usser, who claimed that the world started 4004 BCE, sometime in October, 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how he came up with that. Somewhere in that. He actually did that. Bishop Usser. Look him up, right? And you come in that world in Africa and you see these pyramids, you see these artifacts, you see these things, and you say, man, this civilization is older than the Bible. Now your mind is scrambled. How can you have a civilization in a part of the world that you have enslaved, but yet the people that you have enslaved built the civilization older and greater than your God? See how that orientation is? See, during that time period, right, when they go into Egypt, you get a Napoleon Bonaparte. So he's one of the first to go into Egypt. And he takes a scientific he brings along with him a scientific expedition, right? And they going through the sand and they grab stuff up, right? And I'm telling you, man, when these Egyptologists, because there were no Egyptologists, when they arrived in Africa, yo, they was amazed. They couldn't believe that these people had what they had. Like we forget that one pyramid you could take the stones from one pyramid and build all the cathedrals in Europe. And you know how big the cathedrals are. But they wasn't nowhere. The first wonders of the world is in Africa. They part of the 7 wonders of the world. The first skyscrapers is in Africa. The first stone buildings, you find them in Africa, right? And when they seen this level, they was like, they was confused. So they go in and they start separating on what they felt like the Negro was, right? And what they felt like the white people was. And they separate them. They say, well, these are the people look more like white people, and they head is Egyptians. People look like more like the Negro slaves, you know what I'm saying? They the Nubians. And they play this whole game. I say all that to say that your orientation is very, very important, and the mindset you have is so important. And so the slavery that we've been put through, yo, it pads all that. And it's been passed on for generations, Doc.
Absolutely.
So, it's crazy.
May I add to this very quickly?
Yeah, please do.
Because another thing that is done is that people cherry pick from different indigenous African cultures and civilization, and they find something and they say this is proof that these people are Israelites. Yeah. For example, in the book that I mentioned earlier, Hebrewisms in West Africa, the claim is made that the name Nyankopong and Nyame, yeah, which is the creator in the Tree language or the Akan language, yeah, is in fact derived from Yahweh. And the evidence for this is that the day that is associated with Nyame is Saturday, yeah, which they consider to be the Sabbath. All right. The problem with narratives like that is that you've taken a particular thing out of a culture, divorced it from the rest of the culture in order to make that claim. So my question in relation to anybody who would make that claim is, all right, where do we find the abosom, which are the different deities associated, yes, with the Akan spiritual system in the Hebrew Israelite tradition or the Bible? Where is Kwekuanansi? Yeah. Where is Asaseya? Yeah. Because and Yah relates to the day Thursday. All right. So in the Akan tradition, you have divinities that are associated with different days. And incidentally, that's where names like Kweku and Kwame and Akusua and Efua and so on and so forth, which are day names in the Akan tradition. The day names represent the different divinities that are associated with those days. Yeah. So if we take Nyame out of the context of the rest of the divinities, you can make that claim. Yeah. But when you put Nyame in the context of the rest of the cosmology, then in order to substantiate the idea that these people are in fact Hebrews, you would have to now look at the entire culture, yes, and line it up and show the derivation from the Hebrew Israelite culture. What I am saying is that we do our indigenous African cultures a disservice because we don't look at them on their own merit. They are constantly being judged in relationship to some Western ideology or some Abrahamic ideology. Yeah. And I'm saying that no, the Akan cosmology and the Akan identity and the Akan culture stands on its own merit. The Bakongo ideology and philosophy, cosmology, culture, and identity stands on its own merit, as does the Fon, as does the Ewe, as does the Umbundu, as does the Kikuyu, as does the Ungoni, as does all indigenous African cultures and identity, as we collectively refer to them as African. And maybe we should go into the justification for African identity, because this is also one of the attacks that I've been getting in my comment section. Africa is not the original name, and what is an African identity, as though an Israelite identity is somehow more justifiable than an African identity in some way, shape, or form.
I gotta drop a bomb for both of y'all. Brother Unc, I want you to address this question. Can we still hold Dr. Ben's "We the Black Jews" as a point of reference? Let's go.
Well, first of all, we don't hold. We read the work first, okay, and then we listen to what the man says out of his mouth. There's a video, and maybe I'll show it one day on Sunday night at the movies. Like and subscribe to the Pseudo Killers. Subscribe to Magi Archers, the Real Black Atheists. And Dr. Ben, they asked him about, what about the Black Jews? He was like, I ain't no Black Jews, it's just a religion. He said, what about the book you wrote? He said, I was finished with that book when I was writing it. Now, I don't know why the brother wrote the book, right? But that was clearly a political move, maybe. And he was trying to bring some things together. Whatever it was he was trying to do, when you really read it, what he was basically saying is that while you glorifying this Hebrew thing, he talked about the tribes that the brothers just spit. And he said that cosmology, you know what I'm saying, them Hebrews ain't even around. That while you talking about the Garden of the Eden, right, you got great Black African civilizations, period, that predate anything Adam and Eve. So how can he beat up Adam and Eve, then promote Black Jews? You got to really think about that, right? He was real keen and cunning in what he was doing. He was making a point of reference. And by the way, the Hebrew people aren't pale people anyway. You would have to roughly consider them people of color. You would just have to, just based off their geographical location. And this is where you get trickmanship. This is where they trick you with the eyes. Remember, in science, your senses lie to you. So you're looking at individuals. Some have the blue eyes and the brown skin and the locks and all that. And you saying these are these African people. When the reality is, man, no, these people are in an area that require them to have brown skin because they've been bombarded and attacked by the harmful rays of the sun. UVA rays and UVB rays are very harmful to the reproduction of human beings. So they gotta have the automatic sunblock. And in Jerusalem and those areas right there, it actually is like zone 2. When we say zone 1, zone 2, zone 1 is the equator, zone 2 is Palestine and South Africa, and zone 3, right, is in the northern parts of the planet where you find the people with the lightest of skin colors, right? So we get all this confused when we're looking at that narrative. So, you know what I mean, Doc? I don't know how you want me to answer that question.
No. You did answer the question. Go ahead, Brother Shakura.
I can add, forgive facts. I can add that from my recollection of the book, and it's been many years since I actually browsed that book. But he's not talking about all black people. Him definitely not talk about nobody in West Africa. He's talking about mainly those who are in Ethiopia, who are known as the Beta Israel or the Falasha. Yeah. It's a very specific thing. The credibility of the claims notwithstanding, or whatever one agrees with or disagree with. I think a lot of people use the specific statement that he's making and superimpose it on whole swathes, of Africans. And maybe I can assist by addressing another.
That's a great point, bro. That's a great point.
I'm going to read quickly, sis, from another book called Anthropological Prisms, Studies on African Realities by Baba Kwesi Pra, and it addresses an issue to do with another group of Africans who are considered to be Israelites or Hebrews, and that's the Lemba, and so I'll read 2 paragraphs very quickly, if I may. And he says, Steve Jones' work provides, in eloquent terms, the possibilities that genetics could bring to our understanding of African human and cultural migrations. A good example for this is provided by an examination of the Lemba myth of Jewish ancestry. The Lemba are scattered across north of South Africa, the north of South Africa, and straddle the border area in Zimbabwe. Demographically, they are concentrated in Mberengwe Umposi area of Zimbabwe, but are more widely distributed in lesser concentrations in central and eastern Zimbabwe and northeast South Africa. Apart from their self-proclaimed and much vaunted myth that they built Great Zimbabwe, there is also the adjoining myth that they are a lost tribe of Israel. So this is going on everywhere we are in the black world. Second paragraph, I'm going to skip some parts where he goes into some things, but to read the conclusion of this exploration, he says, the doctrine of the Lemba that they came from biblical lands and were the architects and great builders, the builders of Great Zimbabwe, can be definitively demonstrated to be apocryphal on the basis of genetic mapping. Also, the Star of David, or the Shield of David, their prized and celebrated icon, did not enjoy widespread use until the European Middle Ages, and could hardly have been brought into the heart of Africa 2 millennia before this time. Hebrew is closer to Shona and other Southern Bantu languages than anything as foreign as a Middle Eastern language. In all likelihood, the Lemba are simply incorporated into their myth of origin the rampant 19th century idea of Westerners that the great Zimbabwe builders were from Africa. In another part of the breakdown, he explores the fact that a lot of the genetics surrounding this is based upon the fact that there were some people that came in, mostly Arabs, from what is today called the Middle East and Arabia in particular. And some of the Lemba have paternal ancestry that includes these people. So even, yes, a lot of the claims, that people are using to justify this all-encompassing Hebrew identity is actually DNA that relates to non-African people, yes, who came into Africa, and so that is being used to differentiate these Africans from other sets of Africans, even though the majority of their cultural indicators suggest that they are in fact related to the other Africans that are around them, and not these Hebrews over here or these Jews over here, if that makes sense.
No, I hear you, Brother Shakura, and I appreciate that. I see some Hebrew Israelites are in the chat, and I sent out the link a few times because you're like, I disagree. No one's pushing back. There's no opposition. They're just talking. They're not being challenged. I dropped the link in the chat about 10 times and said, well, join the panel, join the panel, join the panel. Some folks are saying I'm at work. I can't hop on. Okay.
Oh,
then I see
y'all ain't stop them from working.
Then I see brother Flame on too. He said he appreciates the invitation. He said he'd rather join on perhaps part 2 or 3 of the topic. Part 2 should be composed of Hebrew Israelites.
Nah.
Part 3, bring this panel and the Hebrew Israelites back on together.
Nah.
So that's what he said.
I'm not promoting foolery. That's like having a whole panel for the anti-vaxxers. Like, who would do that? Who would let you just talk and run your mouth and destroy African history like that? It's a bunch of crap, man. They try to get in any way they can. Read the daggone book. You act like the damn book go back 1,000,000 years or something. It's a cultural container of ideas and concepts by people. They give you the location where the people at. We ain't even got to go through all that. Come on, man. It's a Middle Eastern story. Matter of fact, the biblical text is the treaties against African culture. Okay, like they detest the fact that the Africans in the Nile Valley connected themselves to all in nature, deified the animals, the dogs, the cats, the birds, the bees, the grass, the trees, and they put it into the meta nature, the words of the gods. Come on, man, like knock that off, man. They was connecting themselves. It was a cultural story in the Nile Valley. The biblical text is a cultural story. The Zulu have cultural stories. The Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, they all have cultural stories with cultural containers of ideas and concepts glorifying their daggone ancestors. Come on, man. I don't got no grandmother named Jacob and Isaac. Where? Read the book. I don't got none of my family names in that book. They wrong. Ain't nobody wrong. So what you saying? Did you only 6,000 years old? Maybe the story don't go back no farther than 600 BCE. So how old are you? How can you be older than your God you praying to? I'm gonna say this real slow. How can you, African Americans, right, be older than the God you praying to? Make that fire!
You know the other contradiction here, Dr. Mata, is that in my humble experience, a lot of the attack that comes against African-centered people and the African-centered community from Hebrew Israelites or people that claim that doctrine is not replicated in their attack against the state of Israel. Right. You would think that if these people stole our true identity, that we would be preoccupied with attacking this nation state that has been built off of people trafficking in our identity. That's what would seem to be the logical focus, for people that were so inclined. It just so happens that many of the brothers and sisters are preoccupied with saying that we're not African and attacking African culture and African spiritual systems and any politicized African form of identification. That to me is a very telling factor as well.
Absolutely, Brother Shakura. And I want to open up the floor because we're going to end in about 20 minutes. So I wanted to open up the floor for people who wanted to come in and give comments. Again, I dropped the link in the chat. The Hebrew Israelites, they're like, oh, you're being divisive. Oh, you're being one-sided. And I'm saying, here's the link. But no one clicked it. The only person that clicked it was Brother Brendan. Shout out to brother, the young warrior in the building, Brother Brendan. Go ahead and unmute your mic, Brother Brendan, and speak your speech.
What's up, Dr. Maud?
Hey, what's going on, warrior? How are you?
I'm good. Just got off work a little earlier. Yeah, this is some interesting stuff, and a couple of comments. I agree with both of y'all for real. The first comment that I have is, it seems that in the chat, a lot of people are still stuck on this developed celebrity culture, and they're focused on the person that wrote the book instead of studying the body of work from the book that they're reading, and then cross-referencing it with analysis or other facts that they would grab from experience with themselves. So that's my first comment. My second comment is the fact that if we were, I mean, it goes back into the ancestral thing we talked about when we chatted up, and it goes back to, if we were going to look back into our ancestry, would we not look at our patterns and cultural indicators as a means to date back who is most likely to be like us? Does that make sense?
I'm listening to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if we look back and we said that our people, when they developed the cornrows, when they put the corn in their hair, when they traveled so they can put their seeds in different lands, in different soils, and then we look at other cultures, did they do that? No. Okay, then that's a culture indication that you probably did not come from that culture. You came from this culture. And that's just one instance, right? We can do this analysis with picking out these cultural indicators, because I know that people like to cherry pick. Well, let's take the cherry picking data and let's cross-reference it back to the pool of other statistical data and continue with this analysis, right? It's really not hard. Like, I don't understand. Like, I keep seeing all these people coming up with these far-fetched ideas, these far-fetched, I don't know. It's just like, it's really like annoying to see at this point, honestly. Like, it's really annoying. Yeah, I'm gonna stop right there for a second.
No, but Warrior, I love it, and that's what Brother Shakura was talking about earlier. He was saying, he was like, you could trace the culture. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, look at the culture.
Like, it's historical. Like, you can trace it, everything. You can trace historically where you came back from.
Absolutely, and Brother Ark is like, and look at the records. Look at the records. Look at the culture. Look at linguistics.
There's no belief.
So many. There we go. It's no belief.
There's no belief in it's either, like, look, people. Oh my God, people don't understand. You either know or you don't know. There is no belief. There is no belief. There's either you know or you don't know. And if you don't know, then you gather the bodies of work to study and cross-reference to match the facts, push out the falses, get the logical analysis, and you find what you need. And it will reveal itself. It's literally mathematical. The math will always yield the correct solution if you follow the right steps. If you continue down the wrong path, then you're going to get the incorrect solution.
And this is a young.
It's not hard.
And I just want the family to know this is a young brother, Shakura. 21, 22, Brother Brendan? Huh? 24, young brother. And he's an aerospace engineer. Let me say that one more time. He's 24. He just moved up here to Maryland. He is an aerospace engineer. Shout out to the young people. Shout out to the engineers. Shout out to you. Thank you so much, Brother Brendan, for coming through and dropping those thoughts, dropping those facts. Appreciate you, Warrior.
Hold on, two more things.
And Warrior, you got to get up here on the 18th. All right. I meant to invite you to Umoja Karamu this past Sunday, but you got to get up here, Warrior, to the Kwanzaa event on December the 18th. All right. So try to make it happen and bring your girl.
Dr. Try bring him on to do a presentation on aerospace and them thing there. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We need that. You know. So
I would love it. I would love to bring him on to talk about aerospace engineering.
I actually have two more things, and just doing a quick, dirty analysis on the book or the arc story, right? Please tell me how, if we look at who was brought on the ark, how many men, how many women were brought on the ark, okay? And then, once we look at that, please tell me how, if every single person died in that age, and then look at the repopulation metrics from that day to now, based on the men to woman ratio, how is that possible? How were 12 tribes developed from those literal, maybe what, 6 people, possibly? 7, 10, 12 people, possibly? If most of them were children, so you're telling me that those children were having children like cells, reproducing every second, splitting every second? Does that make sense? And then on top of that, if the entire, and then if that is the case, if the other fallacy or the other attacking point is, okay, you're saying that at this period, all of the people were dead, yet there are historical records from different parts of the world and different cultures in that same exact time that show that everyone did not die.
Yeah, we know everybody didn't die, warrior. That whole myth didn't make sense. God destroyed everything. And then you look at the dates, the Jewish scholars tell you the flood happened in 2600 BCE. And that was around the time that Imhotep was alive and well and created and drawing up the plans for the damn step pyramid. So it's like, come on, y'all. Like cut it out. We have structures that are older than that. You get what I'm saying?
It's literally like they're looking at this story of the biblical story, like they're on a GPS system. Like they saw this stuff from space and they say, oh yeah, the entire world was destroyed. We have satellite images from it.
It's actually bananas. Like it's bananas. But thank you so much, Brother Brendan. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic because we're off here in like 15 minutes. So I wanted to pass the mic to our elder, Baba Gerald Meeks. Baba, go ahead and unmute your mic, Baba. You have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Hear you loud and clear, Baba.
Okay, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Mod and to the young men that's on this panel. And I want to tell you, I'm 71 years old. I've only been in this about 4 years now. I was in Christianity for 30-some years, preached the same thing, the Noah story and the ark and Lot, wife, the daughter sleep with him. But as I've been into this, I hear a lot of different things. Some say that they Hebrew Israelite and they this and they that, but in my study, I have bought more books in the last 4 years like I did in 30 years that I was preaching in the ministry. I used to do lectures when I was in the ministry, but when I got into this, it was so much that I found out, because I always want to know, who are we? You know, it's just like you want to know who your grandmama was, and as the young man, I can't think of his name, the one with the hat on.
Brother
Ankh. You know, I like his spirit, and because when you look at, like he said, and that is true, when they came over here, they consider them as cargo, you know, and then they changed their names, you know, and when you think about trying to trace your ancestry. Now, they did a blood test on me. They did mine at St. Louis University, and they said that I got ancestors from the Mediterranean. You know, I don't know, but that's what they told me. But it's very interesting, though, to get into these discussions, and you're finding out truth. And I find out, even though Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, I used to listen to them, I learned a lot under them in these last 4 years. But I'm still getting new knowledge, you know. Not saying that everything they did was wrong, or everything they said was wrong, but you got to look at Dr. John Henry Clark said his university was the library, and then we had to look at that lot of information that they had, but they didn't have access to it. But we thank God for them, because they're the reason why we're here today. And I want to say to the young men, you know, y'all keep going and keep teaching, because I've been teaching my daughter and my son, and of course they grown, they got children. But I told them, I said, you don't sit up and listen to everything somebody say without questioning it, you know, because we was taught growing up in church, you know, where you don't question God. You gonna tell me that he said go kill all the Egyptians with the both black folks or whatever, and then turn around and tell them go kill all the Gentiles? I said, well, all this killing ain't going on. What's going on? But I've been listening to this show, and I listened to Sonetta and different ones, and I have learned a lot. and I'm not a debater. I don't. I'm not that adverse to a lot of this stuff. But I'm doing a lot of reading and learning a lot of different things. And like I say, we came over here. Our ancestors were brought over here, and we ought to know we came from somewhere.
Right,
Whether you came here on a boat or stock brought you over here, you're still from Africa. And and still like I don't know what's wrong with our people. Do you know everybody that on this panel? I like to ask the question: you ever looked at your birth certificate? Did it say Hebrew Israelite? Did it say Christian? Did it say Judaism? It said Negro? Now, on my medical report, I don't know why they did it, but when I looked at my medical report, they had on there African. I didn't get mad. I'm not saying to say that my ancestors from Africa. Because there's an origin from. We all have an origin, and Dr. Walter Williams said. He said, "Now I make some Hebrews this like may get upset, but I respect what a person believes." Dr. Walter Williams says that you know more the bloodline of Abraham than you are the bloodline of Popeye. Now that's what that's what Dr. Williams said. Now, but I just say we want to name ourselves. That I left in the chat where this Williams Souder Crowdy was the one the black man that convinced. 1875, something like that. He convinced the Negroes over here that they were the Hebrew Israelites. Now that's far as I'm gonna take, because I'm not into all that. Because I like I said, I'm new at a lot of this. I'm here to learn, even at my age. I don't mind learning. I like listening to young folk, because old Pop's gonna get out here one day. Because not right now, but I'm still here to learn some more. And that's so right. I thank you for allowing me to come in on the platform.
No, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm with you. I'm a lifelong learner. I tell people that I'm a student first. So they say, "Oh, you're a teacher," but I'm a student first. I'll always be a student first. That's right. There's no pinnacle of growth. Some people say, "I arrived, I know everything." No, you don't. No, you don't. And so I'm with you, Baba. I love learning, and I love learning from people who are older than me, people who are younger than me, people who are my age. But go ahead, Baba.
Dr. Ahmad, I used to play for this Baptist church, and I played for the choirs. And this bishop preacher told me, he said, Brother Meeks, he said, when somebody tell you something that's knowledge, put it in your pocket and run with it. Mm-hmm. And I never forgot those words. Mm-hmm. And I had one old man, bishop told me, said, young man, don't ever move the fence unless you know why they put it there. Might be a lawn back there. Mm-hmm. So we learn as we go. And as we learn, we experience, but it's good to listen. I learned one thing about learning is listening.
That's right.
I found out that even the authors that you don't agree with, you'll find something in that. Mm. You might not agree with it, but read it. Get one you don't like, but read it anyway. Because the young man there, I keep forgetting the name. I've heard him before, and he really brought out some good points. And I like the way he presented, and of course he say he don't care whether you like it or not. But I mean, that's you tell the truth, just tell the truth. And some people get upset because they have what they call cognitive dissonance. Their brain not used to hearing a certain thing, they throw it out, say, "Oh, that ain't true." But I've learned not to say it's not true. Rewind, I can't say it's not true because I don't know.
Right.
So in order for me to know, it's just okay. Let me see what he's studying that book you got by $10.
Babylon from Babylon to Temple.
Yeah.
My name that was
one of the first books I bought when I got off into this, but I never could read it. It was something about that book. It wouldn't. I couldn't get into it. I just let it alone, and I said no, it ain't give me what I want. So, like I say, knowledge is power, and if we continue to teach what we do, and teach our young people, keep teaching them. And keep teaching them, because one day they're going to catch on to this. Now, we're waking up, but maybe not by the masses, but we're waking up. And I'm just so proud to see so many young people that's teaching this stuff, you get me, if I was 50 years younger, I wish I could have went to Africa and eat all over there, because I want to know who I am. And when the Egyptian says, "Know thyself," not only just know yourself, know your health, know what you're eating, know what's causing your problems, know thyself, know who you are, know your ancestry. I mean, you just can't throw them away because you can say, well, I'm not I'm African, I ain't African, I'm this, I'm black, I'm Negro. Now the folk called you colored, they didn't like that. Then they went to call you black, you didn't like that. Now they call you Afro American. I don't know why they get the Afro because ain't no R, ain't no O in no Africa. So the Afro, because they dropped that. Now they say you black. Okay, now we African American. Just say African. I listened to a panel last night when Dr. Miles was on. The man said, "You're gonna be one of. How can you be African and American? You're gonna be one or the other." So I just thank you. That's all I had to say. I want just to encourage and tell I enjoyed the show, and I tell you, young men, just keep up the good work and keep on pushing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baba. Appreciate you, Baba. Last comment coming from Brother African in Detroit. Brother, you have the floor. Go ahead and speak your mind.
How you doing, family?
Doing fine. Doing fine, Warrior. How about yourself?
I'm doing fine. Uh, Dr. Ma, honestly, I'm a African centered person, but I wanted to give two pushback questions and wanted to know your opinions on
them. Okay.
Because my first one is, and a reason why a lot of these, I've never been a follower of the Abraham religion, even though, like any black person, Christianity and all of these Islam things been around me and surrounding. All these movements and religions have had strong like ties in every movement. Even when the brother was talking about Garvey, he was a big follower of Christianity, Ethiopian Christianity. And so and a lot of these, although we have problems with these religions, a lot of these movements, religions have more economic and bigger impact on our communities than we haven't had I want to say we haven't had a big African spiritual or renewal again in a long time, as much as these other religions, like say the Nation of Islam brought back a lot of Islamic religion and faith in our religion. And so I wanted to know, for the first thing is, how can we offset that if we don't have alternatives for people to go to? Like, we have churches and mosques in our community, but we don't have African centered religions that become like wealth centers, because we know churches and stuff like that become wealth centers. And so, well, that's the first thing.
Any of the brothers, any of the brothers want to jump in?
I think that the brother has made an observation that many before us have made, and it is an issue, but we have to look at the historical derivations of that issue. As I alluded to earlier, in 1760, when Taki led the rebellion in Jamaica, indigenous African spiritual systems were literally banned, yes, as an act of law in colonial Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean. And so a part of the remedy for that was the Christianization of African people. Yeah. And so institutions that were allowed to be built, yeah, by law in nations such as these were churches. You couldn't have no Kumina temple and shrine, public and open. And they refer to all African spiritual systems as either voodoo or obia, and gave negative characterizations to all. Yeah. And so in the psychology of many of our people, this is akin to devil worship. And all of our institutions had to therefore go underground, yeah, in order to be preserved. Okay, so that's the shorthand of why we are in this position whereby there's not a significant economic presence of indigenous African spiritual systems in today's world. The remedy for that, however, is to, one, challenge the psychological attack against indigenous African spiritual systems, and then institutionalize indigenous African spiritual systems. Yeah. That's the only way to do it. If you want to economize, because all religious and spiritual systems create an economy around itself, yeah, one, you have to get rid of the demonization and that psychology in the minds of African people, and then organize and institutionalize around the principles and the values of the indigenous spiritual systems. But first, we have to be able to teach it. And it's one of the reasons why a show like this is important, where we can call the names of some African ancestors and understand what role ancestors play in African cosmology, and what role the ancestral, or what the metaphorical meaning of certain ancestors are within cultures and philosophies and so on and so forth, and then we can organize around it. So this is a part of the process. It's not and it is a process. It's not an event, and we will get there once we have a significant critical mass of people that are willing to do that work. And so I hope that in short answers your question.
It does. It does, but it's kind of is a hard situation because you're
What's the
dealing with in
question again,
reality.
bro? What's the
Repeat
question?
your
But
question.
I was
Repeat your question.
saying, how
Repeat
can
your
we
question.
use and how can we have a better example, or what do you think is the solution to making it economically tied to our liberation, like how Garvey used Ethiopian Christianity to push the movement, and how he used that to bring together African Americans in different groups in the Americas. How can we do the same thing and tie this in so it's more a reason, like people are ready to open their pockets to the church and the tithe, but how can we do the same thing for voodoo? How can we do the same thing? That's what I'm saying. What's the remedy, do y'all think, to get us, because we can't just tell people to get rid of your religion and not give them something to change to, is what I'm trying to say. What do you think is the solution? That's what I'm asking.
Well, first of all, Homo sapiens sapiens are spooked out anyway. So you ain't never getting rid of religion at all. You can just count that out. There's always going to be a certain amount of the population that's going to believe. We just have to keep. First of all, know that all people aren't homogenous anyway. And so why would we expect black people to be that? That's an impossible dream. But what we can do is we can constantly come together on common causes. We can develop programs for scientific literacy. Dr. Nyal is doing that. We teach African history. We teach global history, and we put us in our proper context. And that's important. But education is the power. Politics, understanding politics. We are affected by politics, so you will understand politics, right? It's used against you, so you got to learn how to fight with it. I used to be opposed to voting, but that was in my ignorance. You would have to vote. There are certain things that can get pushed through, and you have to be able to take advantage of everything you can take advantage of. So it's almost like a faulty premise. What's the faulty premise? That, how can we do this? We doing it. We just don't recognize we doing it. You look at Dr. Meow, look at the brother. We're actually doing it. So never downplay, never overemphasize the nuts that's running around shooting each other, when there are way more African Americans that are doing very positive things. We just got to keep pushing forward, and you should never depend on the media. The media is going to always show up in the crazy neighborhood after somebody did something crazy, and they always pick the wildest person to interview. That's just what they do. It's social media, right? It's it's the headline thing. But we're moving forward. We're getting more educated. The salaries of Black women have risen. We're going to school more. And look, man, they didn't build Rome in a day, and they sure as hell ain't built Africa in a day. It took us damn near 250 years to put us in this position. 400, right? And so it's going to take that amount of time to come out of it. So we just keep pushing forward. Let people have a religion. Just make sure that we continue to have critical thinking skills. Make sure the things that we need to know, right, that we know. Make sure that you never misapply religion in situations that require science. So the question of humanity and where you come from is answered by science. Your philosophical, your philosophy, your history. These things can be tied together in a program that you put together. Do it any kind of way you want, but you should never fall prey to a religion that doesn't talk about your origin. It absolutely makes no sense.
Absolutely. So brother, African in Detroit, we getting ready to close out because we've been on for about 2 hours. And so thank you so much for coming on, brother, with your question. I know you said you had two, and so I think that was the one, right?
Yeah, I was just it wasn't really a question. I was just gonna bring it. It was just a statement, but it doesn't really. It's not important if you gotta go.
No. But what is it like? I don't want to cut you off, but I know you said it was two things. So you said the
Oh
one. What was
yeah,
the second
I
one?
was just saying that this wasn't like a new battle in our history because I was gonna say that the turning of Africans and the Christians and the Abrahamic faith didn't start with just slavery. It like if we know Ethiopia is a huge Christian nation and they was once destroyed by a black queen who was a Jewish named I forgot her name started with a G, but this African's been like when they've been warring with different over Abrahamic religions even before slavery. So I was just going to say that this is not just a beginning. Like it's not just over slavery. This didn't just start then. This is like thousands of years of like like what is it called? Mental conditioning. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah.
Okay.
The
Well,
very thing of religion causes you to fight against each other. My God against your God.
facts.
Yeah, Ethiopians aren't African Americans. That's another point. Predominantly, we Central and West Africans.
All right. Well,
Different claims. Yeah.
I gotta drop a bomb. You brothers were on fire tonight. So I want to thank you, brother Shakura, brother God Killer. Thank you so much for coming on and dropping this good old powerful information. I'm going to give you the floor, yield the floor to you for your last or your closing words.
Simply to say that one of the reasons why the affirmation and the reconstruction of African historical consciousness and continuity is important is because it gives us a sense of identity and it allows us to develop our identity in relationship to each other. Even African spiritual systems and how we develop them in this day and age gives us a theology of liberation if we choose to use it in such a way. Yeah, because of the fact that it emphasizes our unity. It emphasizes the commonalities of our consciousness in terms of how we develop culture. Sorry, my cat's going mad in the back.
No, I hear you. Go. I'm listening.
What? Yeah. So go. Yeah. That's the one thing. And secondly, finally, I do want to say I have an event coming up called the Blueprint for Black Power Foundation. It's a veneration of Nana Amos Wilson. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that's a very important way to end. In fact, let me say this first. Mama Marimba Ani, yeah, has an annual event called Abakasem Sumsum. Yeah, Abakasem Sumsum is a Akan terminology, and that loosely translates into the spirit of history. Yeah, and it's a ritual drama whereby we tap into the energy of our warrior revolutionary ancestors. And I'm saying that in relation to the last brother's point. Yeah, and the example that I was given in terms of institutionalizing our spiritual systems. I had the pleasure of attending this event in Atlanta in the year 2019. I'm hoping to attend it next year, but I'm just putting that out there for brothers and sisters to look out for the information of that event because it's the 20th anniversary next year. Abakasem Sumsum, yeah. And if we want examples of how to tap into and to venerate and to honor properly our revolutionary warrior ancestors, then the work of Mama Marimba Ani in this regard is an example for us all. The Nana Amos Wilson tribute is going to be on the 15th of January. He passed away in and around that date, family. So that's the reason why it's then. And this is the second time I'm hosting it, but we're going to be dealing with issues of Black manhood, or awakening Black manhood, the healer, the warrior, the revolutionary. And we're also going to be looking at an introduction to African-centered psychology, yes, and healing, yeah. And so do check that out. ShakuraSpeaks.com. ShakuraSpeaks.com. We've got 2 powerful speakers and a couple more to be announced. I want to thank you, Dr. Ma'at, for inviting me on to deal with this subject. I want to appreciate you particularly for the work that you are doing in terms of your book readings, because I believe that you are exposing our people to some critical political education that is very much lacking in the conscious community at the moment. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing in that sphere, and also as an educator, because I am been working in African-centered educational institutions for my entire adult life. I think that
beautiful
on another level where that is concerned. So appreciation to you and this platform, and for having me and inviting me on. Tenda mwali, kuzama makuru abibi tumi, abibi fahodie, ashe.
Bibi Fahodie, Bibi Tumi to you. And thank you so much, Brother Shakura, for all that you're doing. I saw the event, and when I saw that it was around the time that Dr. Amos Wilson transitioned, I said he's doing this in honor of him. So definitely, brother, please send me the flyer so that I can promote the event. And this is going to be online, in person, or both?
Online.
Okay, absolutely. So please send me the flyer so I can begin to circulate it and get the word out. I'm definitely going to come through. I'm definitely going to come through. Got to be a part of it. And so I appreciate your time. I appreciate your work. I appreciate your wisdom. So thank you so much, brother, for coming on. You did a phenomenal job. In fact, I was getting ready to inbox you on DM you on Instagram to tell you that you did an amazing job. And I give thanks for everything, your words, your wisdom, and your time. So thank you so much, Shakura. Brother Uncle Cat, what are your closing words, King?
Well, I think we said everything in this particular broadcast. I think we're clear, and I just enjoy emphasizing the African American part. Sometimes in our attempt to recreate African spiritual systems and African religions, we actually forget that we are actually a plan unto ourselves. We have developed in the ecology of North America. Our herbs would be different. The way we handle business would be different. We're in a different situation. And all winners and all champions, you got to know how to change your game up. Keep practicing the same thing, right? What they call that, Doc? Practice the things, same thing, trying to get different results is called insanity.
Insanity, yeah.
Right. So I'm not trying to recreate Africa. No shame in that. I want to glorify and pick up my ancestors in America. Great ancestors helped build North America. Great heroes and sheroes. Great people. Clan unto itself. Nobody actually cares about us. Nobody actually takes up a fund anywhere on planet Earth. Let's help the African Americans. It's not until we show our ass that the rest of the world get behind us. Let's get in the uproar, then the world will follow us. We're the leading African people in the world. That's the great African American. And I just like to glorify that, right? We understand science and technology. We know how to use it. We know how to go abroad and help other African people. We know who we are, strong, solid, and our women stand beside us, not in front of us, not behind us. She's equal in all things. And I'm going to give it to y'all just like that. So big up to the African Americans, man. Real Black Atheism, right? Real Black Atheism on fire. Make sure you subscribe. Pseudo Killers, all right? Make sure y'all subscribe, man. The House of Consciousness, man. We over there with Reggie now, right? Pseudo Killers going to be on there. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to the Raw Squad Media. Make sure you hit that like button in this video right here, man. Big up to the great mother, Dr. Mayat, man. You know how we doing around here. Yo, we ain't taking no shorts, man. Hey, man, we enjoy and love being African Americans. So big up to all the African Americans.
I say, brother. Thank you so much, God Killer, for coming through. Appreciate you, warrior. I know I called you last minute, like literally. You coming through because we've been planning. Remember, you were saying, I want to come on. Remember, you kept saying, I want to come on. I want to deal with it. I want to deal with it. So I remember that. And then I had reached out to Shaka Rod and I was like, let me circle back with Brother Aunt because I know that you wanted to deal with this topic. You were like, let me know. And we were trying to figure something out in the past 2 weeks. And I called, I'm going live tonight, you know, and dealing with this. So thank you so much, Brother Ankh, for coming on.
Appreciate you. And Shaka, he brings one element, and the blending it together. The African American, those who love being African American, and those who relish and love the African abroad, man. When them two ideas come together, yo, you got an undefeatable force.
Come on, facts. When you bring all that together, it's over.
It's over.
It's over. It's over. So
appreciate I ain't a hate, I'm participating.
So appreciate everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for sliding through. Hopefully I'll be live tomorrow. Dr. William Sandy Darity is scheduled to come on. I got to reach out to him tomorrow to see if he's still coming on. But thank you so much for, tuning in, family. So peace and love to everyone under the sound of my voice. Peace and love to the family who'll be watching in the archives. All right. And so I may be live tomorrow. If not, I will definitely be live on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So either tomorrow and or Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live. If you don't catch me on those days, have a blacktastic week and a blacktastic weekend. Peace and power. Amani, Amandala, Abibi Fahodie, Habibi Tumi. Ashe, 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 yo.